So I'm Tony Evans, and my job is a British Sign Language stroke English interpreter. By accident is the answer to how I got into that. Totally changed my life, and that was 30 years ago. The job has taken me to places that I could never imagine. I've interpreted for the British consulate out in Serbia. I've worked all over Europe, different tours, different events, from international water polo tournaments to singing competitions to conferences, God knows what. It's variety that you couldn't really imagine in many other jobs, and that has kept me going for 30 years. Stops me getting bored. Definitely don't get bored. Every now and again I get to wear my flip-flops to work, which is really nice. And then on another day I'm in a suit and tie, and as soon as the job finishes the tie comes off. I think what we do as interpreters and what people think we do is quite different. So I think the public perception is the government briefings, certainly of late, that's a big issue, and crises. The team of interpreters in Wales has been brilliant. Julie and Kath, my co-workers, we're often thrown some dates at quite short notice, and we've fiddled around family and work commitments. Working in front of live cameras is a challenge. Working with the leaders of your country is a challenge and an honour. I think it has been slightly bizarre in the sense that people have assumed that we as interpreters know, well, you have the ear of the Welsh Government. It's like, we certainly didn't have the ear of the Welsh Government, but it did give us a certain insight, or certainly speaking for myself, I found it quite moving in a way to see ministers and medical officers and scientific advisors coming down that corridor on a weekly basis, obviously exhausted. And I found a new respect for the people that were governing the country, I have to say. Interpreting the fire break announcement was huge. The announcement of the fire break kind of made me gulp a little bit. So just before the briefing, maybe literally 2 minutes, I would get a script and it would be, oh, okay, this is the news today. And you've heard the rumours throughout the news through the morning, and then when you get the script, it's very real, and it kind of feels like you're telling people as the interpreter. You know, it kind of feels like I'm saying that to my kids, you know, right, this is it now, you know, we ain't going out, we're not playing football with your mates, you know, and that's huge. That was huge. The death toll, announcing the death toll every day was huge. You know, putting those numbers physically onto your hands makes it real somehow. But the flip side of that is the vaccination program. I think probably everybody knows the sign for vaccination now throughout the country, you know, and it was a real positive spirit lifter. It really was, and it got to the point where every single briefing was just about vaccinations, and the numbers were going up, and you know, and that's great. Yeah, that really lifted you. The corridor beforehand it could actually be quite funny. Yeah, you know, people rushing in and out of loos, or you know, I nearly missed a briefing because I was in the loo. But no, I think on the whole, what people saw on the screen in the comfort of their living rooms was genuine. For me, as a hearing person working as a language professional, it's incredibly frustrating that the novelty factor is still there. We see interpreters on the telly in New Zealand when there's been an earthquake, or when a volcano erupts, or whatever, you know. And it's a real shame that you're going to have some kind of crisis, that you're going to have some kind of awful world-shattering event for people to go, oh look, there's an interpreter on the screen providing access. You know, do people not need access the rest of the time? What about the happy things? What about the good news? What about the everyday news? Access to that sort of thing is still very, very limited to a crazy degree. I think in Wales we've got a really, really good opportunity. We've got a perfect example as well. So Wales, by law, is a bilingual country. So written into law is the Welsh Language Act and everything that comes with that. It's not a choice. It's a choice whether you speak Welsh or not, but it's not a choice to provide that access for certain bodies. And the barrier for me is the fact that there is no British Sign Language Act. It's recognised as a language, has been now for decades. But that gives it nothing, that gives it no power. And governments can choose to ignore sign language. They can choose not to provide interpreters. There's no legal obligation on the Welsh Government to provide interpreters at the briefings. They've done it, hats off to them. Scottish Government did it, Irish Government did it. And if people have a choice, they will choose the cheapest option and the easiest option. And the cheapest and easiest option is you have to sort yourself out. That's really sad, you know. And if we did that with the Welsh language, you know, imagine where we'd be now. With deaf children, if they go to a school and their first language or preferred language is British Sign Language, there's no obligation for them to be provided with sign language by educators or support workers. So teachers of the deaf, there's no requirement for them to know sign language. In Wales, again, you know, we're a small country, we can make that change. As an interpreter, being able to work with the Welsh Government has been an honour, it's been a challenge, and I hope that this means that the Welsh Government will look forward now and push for the BSL bill and make even more things accessible and hopefully make Wales a more accessible place.